You're listening to the Wayward Atheist Podcast. Hello, everyone. If this is your first time listening, thank you for joining us. This is a podcast where borders collide, where the gloves are off, where filters are removed, where we tell you exactly what we think about the news, politics, and religion. The Wayward Atheist Podcast is dedicated to free thought, reason, and the pursuit of truth. You can follow us on Twitter at Wayward Atheist, on Spreaker, Stitcher, and iTunes. You can email us at waywardatheistpodcast@gmail.com or leave us a comment on our Facebook page. So without further ado, let's get on with the show.
Hello and welcome to the Wayward Atheist Podcast. I'm Dave, a.k.a. the Great White North.
I'm Big Black Guy Dave.
I'm Ed, the Everyday Atheist.
I'm Dustin Dark.
And tonight we are joined by...
I'm Nick. I'm the Nicholas Terry. I'm the chapter head for the Satanic Temple of Ottawa.
The Satanic... Do you guys sacrifice children?
We do not sacrifice any children.
Is that like the most cliche thing anybody ever says to you? Has to be, right?
No, the how much for my soul thing is still the weekly must-have email or message we get, and it's always disappointing because we don't do that, and people put a lot of effort into getting in touch with us to find out how much their soul is worth, which is
I would like fuck with them like so bad.
It is so incredibly tempting to, but we're all about divorcing ourselves from the supernatural, and so the entire existence of the soul is something we don't even, give a lot of credence to. But it's very tempting to fuck with a great many amount of people. But we end up doing that as a byproduct of a lot of our activism anyway. So we get that out of our system on a regular basis.
Cool. Okay, well, we'll jump into how's your week, David. How was your week, buddy?
My week's been great. Still dealing with some family issues with my mom's health. I've taken my clarinet back out and been playing a little bit more. And still learning Japanese. So,
if you don't mind me asking, how is your mom doing at this point?
She's doing a lot better. She's pretty much close to full strength post-operation. So I'm really happy about that.
The doctors say cancer-free?
That hasn't been revealed yet. Okay. So hopefully,
Yeah, fingers crossed, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
For sure. And where are you at with your Japanese?
I'm not even taking official lessons, so I have no idea where. But I could recognize the characters. I could write stuff. Like I'm thinking about, okay, there's this English word. How do I translate it to katakana? And I kind of just do that. And so I'm nimble with the kana. And I'm trying to learn some kanji. The kanji is the toughest part. I don't
know what that means.
Hopefully our listeners will.
There was a listener actually that wrote in about you speaking Japanese.
Yeah, I think that listener probably visited Japan and sort of
knows
more than I do. But,
yeah, for sure.
All right. Yeah.
Ed, go ahead.
Oh, my week has been pretty boring as usual, except I've been reading extremely a lot. So I've been, and bitching at people on Facebook. Thanks, guys, for introducing me to Facebook. But other than that,
Nick, here's the thing: is that Ed used to argue with people on Twitter, and I was like 100 and whatever characters, so you can't get any fucking work done or any proper trolling done at all. So we're like, we dragged him onto Facebook, and now all of a sudden he's writing like storybooks to people, telling them off. It's hilarious. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah, it's incredible what can happen when you get out of a 144 character prison. Eh?
Oh, I should go back to Twitter because it's like dissertations now. So I got to stop.
It's also amazing what happens when you meet terrible influences like me and Dave.
I think Twitter is kind of like that cottage where you go to get unplugged 1 month out of the year and detox and just not be an asshole for a month. I think that's what 144 characters can give you after, a year on Facebook.
Yeah, Twitter was like arguing you'd make a half a point, then you got to make another tweet, and then 8 tweets later you have the start of an argument, and then you can keep going from there. But anyway, other than that, I have been having a really pretty productive week, except for my back. But other than that, good.
Dustin, go ahead.
It's been a pretty good week. I've decided to put some more time into recording some of my music. Getting some solid recordings. David, Big White Gay Dave, was kind enough to send me his mixing board so that I could, just up my game and get some better equipment and see if I can get some quality music. And maybe some of it will make its way onto the podcast in the coming months. So we'll see how that goes.
Right on. I'm happy to hear that you're solid on the guitar, and I enjoy your singing. So, to me, you're solid on the guitar. As somebody that's not a musician, you sound good.
Oh yeah, but like I was even talking to Ed last night. Like, you sit me down with an actual musician and like start talking music, and it'll be about 15 minutes before I have to tap out and just be like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I do all right. I taught myself, so it goes so far, and then you run out.
Well, for somebody that taught themselves, you can play.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. I'll take the compliment and walk away.
Yeah. Okay, me, I finished a bathroom renovation that turned out spectacular. I'm actually pretty happy about the way that this one turned out. Looks pretty sweet. It was a very small space, so I was kind of worried about how it was going to work out in the end. What did you think about it, Ed?
Oh, it's beautiful. Absolutely stunning. I love the tile and the color selection. It's going to pop. Anybody that's not pleased with that don't know what a proper bathroom should look like.
Yeah, no, the customer is very happy. And my kid had a recital. Was your kid in the recital, Nick?
No, I think next year maybe. She's still in JK, right? So.
Okay, yeah. But so my kid was in a recital, which I couldn't go to, but Tracy was kind enough to go and videotape it, so I was watching that on TV today. It's hilarious because half the time they're ahead of what they're supposed to be, and the other half of the time so they're behind. So they're behind on the lyrics, but when they're supposed to sit down, they sit down before they're supposed to sit down. So the body movements are ahead and the lyrics are behind. I thought it was pretty interesting. You can really tell how children learn kind of in a play-based way instead of in a vocabulary way, because like obviously the lyrics and the vocabulary was behind, but the actual play of the song was faster than what the teacher was able to get out. So I thought that was pretty fucking funny, personally. But other than that, yeah, just working constantly. Yeah, I'm good. We'll jump into the show.
Hi, this is John Shane, and you're listening to the Wayward Atheist Podcast.
Okay, we're back from the break, and in this next segment, we're going to interview Nick. Ed asked him a question before the show started, and I liked the answer. It was getting pretty in-depth, so I'm going to let Ed ask the first question.
Nick, what type of Satanist are you? Are you of the Anton LaVey camp or the Satanic Temple camp?
So I'm firmly in the Satanic Temple camp. I am, in fact, the chapter head of the Satanic Temple here in Ottawa, Canada. The main difference is if you look at Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible, I mean, I'll recognize the sort of historical relevance of it to Satanism without ever forgetting that Anton LaVey was and always remained a carny at heart, right? He was a guy who was really not only intrigued with the idea of being able to have a group of people sort of follow him and the idea of elitism, and even if you look at where the church was formed, you know, he had access to celebrity, he had access to a lifestyle that at the time was very rebellious, right? So contextually, you know, LaVey Satanism sort of made some kind of sense. There was an opening of a door at least, but at its worst, it's just rehashed Ayn Rand. It's just rehashed sort of social Darwinism. And that, for me, never spoke to me. So I always identified with Luciferian characters when I was younger. But LaVey Satanism, which was the only sort of organized vehicle for that, never appealed to me for those reasons. So that led me to the temple eventually after many, many years.
I heard LaVey on a podcast, or maybe not LaVey himself, but a relative
Possibly. Yeah.
Possibly a nephew.
His daughter, maybe, or
No, it was a male. It was a male.
Yeah. His son-in-law.
Son-in-law. Yeah, it could have been him.
Yeah.
Talking about doing proper spells on people.
Well, this was one of the ambiguities that Levain Satanism always found itself in, is they purported to be an atheistic form of Satanism, and they would say, oh, our magic is this melodrama, and it's just psychodrama, or whatever, rather. But in my opinion, when LeVay realized that by completely dismissing the supernatural, he was also ostracizing a pretty big portion of the type of people who would be interested in Satanism, he kind of said, well, I don't really believe in it, but I'm not going to get too deeply into how much I don't believe in it. So, truthfully, if you read the Satanic Bible from front to back, you're left with a feeling of uncertainty as to whether or not this higher magic he talks about is in fact just psychodrama, sort of contextualized ritual or meditation, or if he actually thinks they will change reality to reflect his will.
Yeah, because this guy was talking about revenge spells and shit.
Yeah, well, one of the big sort of, I guess, principles of Levain Satanism is the don't turn the other cheek, right? And the revenge is good. If someone hurts you, you hurt them back twofold or tenfold or whatever the case may be. So that works very much in line with what he'd be into. Then
the Satanists from the temple that I've heard, I'll make a statement that from talking to you and then from reading online all the charity work that they do, I know people are always trying to compare charity works between atheists and Christians, but neither atheists or Christians hold a fucking candle to what the Satanists do. The Satanists are always doing something. It just seems like, and not just one temple, all the temples. Seems like. Go ahead.
Yep. Well, the sort of activism that we do is a very big part of our practice, right? One of the ways in which we express ourselves religiously is through activism and through our campaigns. And what you're seeing is there's a number of different campaigns that are concurrently being fought by the Satanic Temple on different fronts, and they're all really successful. So you're getting sort of that synergy between different chapters and different states working together, all towards one real goal, which is providing, those multiple points of view, making sure the plurality is well represented, the duality is always a thing, and that's something that we fight on many different fronts.
Yeah, and I'm not just talking about your work in the secular realm. I'm talking about the humanistic, the going and giving homeless people sandwiches and food and doing drives. That's more what I was talking about when I was saying that.
Well, our practice is guided by 7 fundamental tenets, right? And that's a big part of when someone says, well, would TST be right for me? We always guide them towards our tenets. And basically, if you read the tenets and they resonate with you, then chances are we would, as an organization, will most likely resonate with you. The first tenet is to strive to act with compassion and empathy towards all creatures in accordance with reason. So if that's your anchor to everything and your baseline kind of tenet, then humanistic acts of charity go towards that pretty well. They go hand in hand with that. We also have another tenet that figures importantly in a lot of what we do, and that's one's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone. And that, suggests that the highest respect and the highest demand for bodily autonomy at the highest level. And obviously, people in society that don't have a whole lot of control over what happens to their body, for instance, homeless people or former sex trade workers or people like that have quote-unquote been demonized or satanized or whatever, there's a lot of little things in place that prevent them from having the same access to healthcare you and I have. And those are the little battles that we fight, because a lot of the reasons behind why those legislations aren't necessarily fair is that whole idea of morality in law. It's less explicit in Canada, as it maybe would be in southern United States, but it's still there. right? We don't think of these people as, key members of our society, because way back when religion was a much bigger part of our society, and we, based laws on them and so on and so forth. These people weren't even considered people, and they still, to a certain degree, suffer those prejudices today.
Go ahead, Ed. You had a question?
I'm not sure if this is Satanic Temple or Anton LaVey's. There was a quote, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." Is that still a common edict, or is that something that is from the other camp?
Well, that's actually not from neither. That's the Thelemic motto. I'm sure you've heard of Aleister Crowley. He was dubbed the wickedest man in England. Yeah. He was an occultist and a very, very prominent occultist at that. And he helped form something. Well, he was part of something called the Esoteric Order of the Golden Dawn, which today is sort of morphed into something called the Ordo Orientis Templo Ortus, which is the OTO. I think I got the exact wording wrong there, but it's basically a subsect of that, and that was his saying. The full saying is, "Do what thou wilt, that is whole of the law, love is law," and it basically purports that if you sort of take care of your own situation, your own reality, and you dictate it the way you see fit, then inevitably others will. If everybody sort of does that, so it'll bring humanity to a different level of existential existence. And it's been taken on by a lot of different occult organizations, and it's sort of one of those quasi-mainstream occult sayings. You see it on, Blackcraft cult T-shirts and so on and so forth. But that sense of independence is definitely key to and common to a lot of Satanists, and I'd say it's common to all Satanists. It's just what you do with that independence that makes the difference between being someone who'd be more on the LaVeyan side versus someone who'd be more on our side.
That doesn't seem very wicked at all to me.
Well,
to be honest with you,
it's not really meant to be wicked. When we identify ourselves as Satanists, right? One thing that we have in common within the Satanic Temple is we look at the sort of Luciferian archetype, the literary Satan, as our point of reference. If you look at, Paradise Lost, Blake's Lucifer, if you look at Anatole France's Revolt of the Angels, we're talking about characters that show up over and over again in art and literature at certain key points in sort of societal revolution and reform. And they're the eternal rebels, the critical inquirers, the people that will look at the sort of the system in place and say, well, what if we just, break part of this down and rebuild, or if we just question it and see if it stands? And those characters historically have been satanic characters, right? And it goes back to Prometheus in Greek legend, Odin in Norse legend, right? These are all people who have suffered at the hands of a tyrannical father for the better of humanity. And that is how we identify with Lucifer, Satan, and that figure, that character.
Let me ask you this though: why do you? So you're you're an atheist, right? And you're a humanist, obviously, and you do charity acts. Why do you need the symbolicism of a temple, Satan, all that stuff? Couldn't you get the same work done without it?
I'm really glad you asked that, because it's probably one of our most common questions. We call it the why Satan question. But you have to remember, as Lucien Greaves, who is our founder, said, it's not like we sat around and built an organization and said, okay, guys, what do we call it, right? We were all individually Satanists to begin with that same worldview, and came together to form a satanic organization that we could get behind, that reflected our values and how we interpreted the Satan element. So there would be no other name. Without that name, without that common element that ties members together, we wouldn't have come up with the temple at all. It was our initial self-identification as Satanists, that led us to form a satanic organization in the manner that we did.
But isn't Satan or Lucifer you don't know this about me, but I've been an atheist since I'm 8. So and I haven't even read the Bible. So take what I say for a fucking grain of salt.
Sure.
Isn't Satan and the story of Lucifer tied to Christianity? Why would you want something that's tethered to Christianity in such a way?
Satanism is and isn't tethered to Christianity. The satanic...
No, but the Satan himself is, right?
Right. I think that, again, for all of us who are in the temple, who form the core of the temple, and certainly for those who formed the temple initially, that fascination with that eternal rebel character, that Satan character,
yes,
was, again, very, very key. It was the sort of the key factor, the initial factor, right? Whether it tethers us to Christianity or not, I don't know that we're all that concerned with that. We are Satanists. That's sort of the key number one factor, and then from there, our participation. In other words, if the temple folded tomorrow, I'd still be a Satanist. Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't change that at all.
Go ahead,
it might
Dustin.
change the logistics, but.
Well, I used to be very religious and Christian. But when you look at things, when you look at this Satan, the story of Lucifer or the Morning Star or whatever you want to call him in the Bible, and you look at it with an atheist view, let's say someone like Christopher Hitchens, where God is the great dictator, that kind of makes Satan the hero of the story.
Exactly.
There was this one angel that decided he wasn't going to take this shit anymore. And even though he knew he would lose, he fought anyway. And there is something heroic about that story that I can respect quite a bit. And it brings me. I know this is way off topic, but Dave Matthews has a song where he's the devil in the Jesus and the devil is in the desert for 40 days story. Mm-hmm. And in that situation, he's actually a good man. Like. He's trying to give him food because why would you be hungry? Yep. So it's all a matter of perspective. I would say whether or not Satan is an admirable character or not.
Well, I mean, Prometheus, gave fire to man knowing that his liver was going to be pecked off the side of a mountain for eternity. And that, if that's not an anti-hero, I don't know what is. Yeah.
And I will say, I threw out those questions, but I would say that as long as the temple is doing the work that I've seen throughout the North American chapters that I've seen the work going on, I don't really care what they believe, because I think they do a bang up job for everything from like the getting the 10 Commandments pulled from places because they're like, well, if your shit's there, my shit's there. The after school coloring books, getting the creationists out of doing after school programs, like all this stuff is fantastic work that atheist organizations have not been able to get done at all.
That's
So
thank you for recognizing that.
Have you been involved in any of that type of activism in terms of separation of church and state working in Canada?
Yes, the Canadian narrative is obviously considerably different from the American one, right? We're talking explicit versus implicit all the way. But there are definitely still things. Don't forget, we have a blasphemy law on the records. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Canadians are aware of that. We
bring it up a lot on the show.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, what really scares me about the blasphemy law is that it's an unknown factor. It's an unknown law right now, right? And whoever controls it next, however this law comes up next, they control the narrative of that law. Now, the law right now is one of those dormant little sneaky guys sitting under a mountain of legislation that most people have no idea. Most average Canadians, if you stop them on the street and you said, hey, what do you think of our blasphemy law? They'd probably say, I don't want a blasphemy law. What's that? Right? But they don't know it. So it's definitely something that I'm interested in individually as an atheist in Canada as to whether or not the Satanic Temple is going to take that on. I can't speak about things that will happen. I can say that my own interest in it is certainly something I will be looking into. But I definitely think that that is a key part of the narrative. Is there's a lot of little things that we don't really talk about in our legal landscape that are actually religiously based, that have no business being so. For instance, healthcare, reproductive, feminine reproductive systems, rather, tampons, pads, and all that. Those are still taxed, right? They're still deemed non-essential products. And what happens is a lot of the times, women who are homeless or in the streets who don't have access, and shelters don't carry these products typically because they are taxed. So they end up having to use all sorts of things they find on the street to solve that issue. They get really sick, and so on and so forth. Well, ask yourself, why was there ever a tax on those products? And those, you can easily link that back up to religious puritanical ideas about menstruation, about women, and about periods, and all that kind of good stuff, and so on and so forth. So I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do here in Canada that we will discover more of once we sort of shake the tree and see what falls out.
When you're talking about like Baphomet and like things like that, does that really have like a religious meaning to the temple, or is that almost like a let's piss off the Christians and put up a Baphomet statue?
No. One thing that's very important to understand is we're not trolls, right? We're not sort of just doing this to piss people off. Everything we do, if it happens to have that sort of element to it, then that's a byproduct, and that's great. But we do these things for specific reasons. Baphomet is all about duality, right? And that's what we represent. Half man, half woman, half human, half animal, half angel, half demon. It's our yin and yang is really what it is, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that the Baphomet figure is a perfect figure to represent what the temple is. We are that multiple point of view, which will always ensure its presence when there is one point of view being demonstrated in a dominant sort of fashion.
It's very interesting, I gotta say.
I think it is, and I think that it is, again, because we're not doing this from a troll perspective, we're not doing this to just sort of get attention, we plan to continue doing this, and the idea of it becoming something you see more often in different actions is something that I think could change the narrative on a lot of different issues.
You're very open about being a Satanist. You have no fear of this. If people don't know, my son and Nick's daughter go to school together. They go to school in a middle-class area. I find it very brave of you. It's not even like lower middle class. It's like mid to upper middle class area. And you go to pick her up every day wearing your Satanic Temple shirt. I find that very brave for one thing, because those uptight motherfuckers are going to be talking about it. Like, you just know it, right? And the other thing that I'm going to say is that you and your wife are literally the only ones that ever struck up a conversation with me. Now, when I go to pick him up, my son up, I'm dirty from my day's work of being a tradesman, sure. and I'm sure they look down at me. Like, I get that feeling, anyways. So I find it very brave, and you and your wife are very nice people.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. And we felt the same kinship with you, and it's great to be on your show.
Right on. We'll be right back after the break.
Sounds good.
Okay, and we're back from the break, and in this segment, we're going to be talking about some good work that the Satanist Temple in Minnesota is doing.
All right, so we're going to start out reading a New York Times article that's titled "Satanic Temple Sponsors a Veterans Memorial in a Minnesota Town," and it is by Christopher Melee. The Veterans Memorial Park in Belle Plaine, Minnesota, includes a walkway with rows of American flags on either side, a UH-1 Hugh helicopter, and a granite monument with the engraved names of residents who died in the Indian War of 1862, the Civil War, World War I and II, and the Korean and Vietnam Wars. Coming soon to this one-acre park will be an unlikely monument from an even more unlikely source, a black steel cube with a golden inverted pentagram on each side and an empty soldier's helmet on the top, sponsored by the Satanic Temple. I like the way they worded that. Like, you guys are unlikely. It will be the first monument sponsored by the temple to be erected on public grounds, the group said. Belle Plaine, a city of about 6,900 residents, about 45 miles southwest of Minneapolis, might be an unexpected spot for such a president, which was set off by months of debate over whether a different monument crossed church-state boundaries when it was added to the park. That monument, sponsored by the Belle Plaine Vets Club, was a black metal silhouette of a soldier with a rifle kneeling before a 2-foot cross. The Freedom from Religion Foundation objected to the display, arguing that the religious emblem violated the Establishment Clause of the Constitution. It maintained that the memorial sent a message that the government cares only about the death of Christian soldiers and was disdainful of the sacrifices made by non-Christians and non-religious soldiers, it said in a statement. The memorial was removed in January, but city officials were pressured by the community to restore it, leading to the creation of a limited public forum area at the park to accommodate it and others. Mike Vodka, the city administrator, said on Monday, "So far, only the Vets Club and the Satanic Temple have applied to erect monuments. Officials from the club could not be immediately reached on Monday. Once one religious viewpoint has imposed itself on public grounds to the exclusion of others, we have nothing but the ethical and constitutional high ground," the temple's founder, Lucian Greaves, said on Monday. This was not the first time the group has tried to install a statue or monument on public grounds. In 2015, the temple pushed to erect an 8.5-foot tall bronze statue of Baphomet, which depicts Satan as a goat-headed figure with horns, hooves, wings, and a beard at the Oklahoma Capitol. The group retreated from that effort after the Oklahoma Supreme Court outlawed a Ten Commandments display from appearing at the Capitol, ruling that it was a religious symbol. The group is pushing to erect a similar statue at the Arkansas State House in Little Rock after lawmakers there approved the installation of a Ten Commandments monument. A metal worker in Massachusetts who specialized in art is crafting the Belle Plaine Monument, which was designed by Chris Andrews of New Mexico. Mr. Greaves said the temple is considering the best ways to protect it against vandalism and hopes to have it erected in a few months. It's sad you guys always have to be like, they're going to shit on our stuff, so we gotta have contingency plans.
That's what I was thinking.
Lasers.
It's unfortunate, but we'll keep doing it till those incidences lessen.
A moat with sharks and laser beams on their head, right? No, but
give me sharks with laser beams. Yeah. I'll take them.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let you kind of start us off on this, okay, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's really exciting about this, and one of the reasons that I'm excited to talk about it, is not only as a veteran do I feel a particular kinship with this, but this is the first satanic monument erected by Satanists on public property. Right? So this is a huge victory. Now, the victory didn't come to us through a harsh battle. As we've stated, and has been very obvious from the articles, the Belle Plaine community and even the pastors there were actually really quite wonderful about the process. They recognized the need for plurality, and in fact, the pastor is quoted in several articles as saying that as soon as they saw the original monument with the cross, they knew that this debate would at least be brought to the table, and they had a pretty good feeling how it was going to end. And they're fine with that. They understand the reason behind plurality, or at least they seem to be pretty okay with it. So there's that whole element too. Huge victory on that end, but also the monument itself. If you look at that New York Times article, and it'll be linked to your listeners, I'm sure. If you go up to the top of it, there's a picture, a sort of a digital picture of what the artist imagines this monument's going to look like. As you can see, it's very inoffensive. It's very well thought out. The four sort of corners of the black box. I'll sort of describe real quick for your listeners. It's a black granite box, and on either side are carved gold inverted pentagrams. And on the top of the box sits an inverted black soldier's helmet. And the four corners of the cube, if you will, represent the four corners where the sacrifices of the soldiers have happened. And I can certainly relate to that. And also the helmet is upside down. It's supposed to represent sort of Baphometic bowl of wisdom, if you will, sort of a receptacle of reason, right? And it's also meant to encourage interaction with the monument. And this is where that whole vandalism thing gets sticky, is ideally, it would be great if people could throw little messages or something meaningful in the helmet. But, we've had issues before with public vandalism of satanic monuments that were either directly related to TST or affiliated to them. So,
very Christian-like. Very Christian-like to go and destroy.
Who can resist shitting in a hat?
Well, a lot of people can, actually, I think. I think that there's a remarkable number of people that won't vandalize, but I think, unfortunately, the squeaky wheel often does get that grease. But I think in this case, honestly, there's been so much respect and thought put into the monument that people seem to really be resonating with it, and they seem to be accepting of it amongst the other points.
Maybe in this one case, because it is veterans, they'll leave it the fuck alone.
We can always hope.
Justin doesn't think so. Justin has skeptical hypno eyes going on there.
No, I think that's why they're get most pissed. Like, how dare you put a satanic symbol at a place, memorizing the dead or in memorial of the dead. I think that they take special offense for that, actually.
I think the potential is definitely there, especially given the sort of the connection between a lot of very pro-military on the Christian right and that sort of relationship. But in the veterans world, honestly, when I was a veteran for 10 years, and I worked, now I was a Canadian veteran, but I did work a lot with American veterans, and on that level, there was religious plurality of all sorts, and there was actually quite a few more alternative religious members in the Army as well. So I think it's going to have a strong, sympathetic view from the public, and a really strong, even stronger one within the military community. You'll have your loudmouth sort of people who say, well, how dare you? But I think for the most part, a lot of military veterans, especially combat veterans, politics and religion tend to go out the door a little bit when you're actually doing things that are that have a sort of immediate impact that military operations. You're getting shot at. Yeah, exactly.
The saying that I hate the most, that is I won't say discriminatory, but denigrating towards atheists, is there's no atheist in the foxhole. And not only do I hate it because it paints us as cowards, but it also paints us as we don't actually believe what we say we believe. And that is... I'll just say one thing and then you can jump in. And logistically, if I was actually in a foxhole, I would rather be with somebody that isn't going to be praying to some god to get him out of the situation. I would rather be with the motherfucker that's going to fight his way out because he knows there's nothing there but his gun to save him. Mm-hmm. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that whole idea that we don't really believe what we say is a thorn in our side. Certainly, something a lot of people like to say about the Satanic Temple. That, in keeping with that whole idea that we're trolls, that we don't have sort of a serious religious belief in what we do, and we do very much so. That's very important. As much as we do work with sort of legalities within the system that help us achieve better separation of church and state, the Satanic Temple is a religious organization. We do see ourselves as such. Our practice is very different from traditional organizations. We're anti-supernatural, or at least we reject supernaturalism in favor of reason and science, right? But we don't use the trappings of religion as a joke or as a ploy. We legitimately feel that the Satanic Temple answers every sort of social construct religion answers. Community, ritual, a guided sense of values or tenets or whatever you want to call them. And I think that that's the kind of thing that we want to really that's the real victory, is when people can say, yeah, you know what, a non-theistic organization, they want to call themselves religious, so be it, go for it.
So before I get back into the veterans thing, isn't like the base tenet of a religion is to have like dogma and a deity at the head of it?
Well, no, that's kind of what we've done with it, I think. But I think if you look at a parish, for instance, right? You talk to people on the street, and I say, okay, what's your religion mean to you? Not a lot of them are getting into deep theological debates about how their church originated, how it splintered off from whatever parent of Christianity or Abrahamic religion it came from. They're going to tell you, well, you know what, I like going on Sundays, I like meeting my friends because they think like I do. I enjoy the rituals as markers in time, and I enjoy the idea that sort of we have a common sort of purpose or common sort of set of ideas. And we do all of that as well.
Right on.
No, I'm just thinking, so is this is the Satanic Temple almost a way to just bring community, erase the supernatural BS, but just but keep the structure of religion? Like, I mean, like you just said, community and things like that. Is that the basic gist of why you come together as a group? Because most atheists, it's like herding cats, right?
The gist of why we come together is the need for plurality. It's the need for multiple points of view. That is the raison d'être for which we mobilize. One of the byproducts of that mobilization is all that other stuff. When the Satanic Temple started its very first actions, I'm talking going right back to the Rick Scott, and your listeners can Google this, the Rick Scott incident or the initial Baphomet monument in Oklahoma, those initial discussions, right? Those discussions were had because the need for that extra point of view was so clear, because there was only one dominant point of view being presented, and that was contemptuous to us, and we wanted to do something about that. As we kept doing that, communities happened, communities formed, chapters formed, and within that, then the sort of the base structure of a religious community formed.
When are you guys in Canada going to put up a war memorial at our war memorials?
Well, we do have some events planned. I can't get too into sort of what we have planned because there are legal sort of parameters that need to be sort of established.
Legal schmeagle, drop it here.
It's important stuff, man. That's why we win. We win because we're careful about that stuff. But we definitely have some really exciting stuff that I think you in particular and your listenership, if you will, in particular, will be very interested in. There's definitely things in Canada that need to change, and Satanic Temple is ready to stand up to certain archaic things that still exist that I think we can take on.
Yeah, I know you spoke about plurality between the soldiers that you experience, but obviously, especially in the U.S., I won't say as much in Canada, but there is some of it in Canada. There are that Christian, Dominion type soldiers that are in there, like the far right Christian soldiers that are like,
for sure, absolutely,
totally onto God. So do you know? Obviously, you're not part of the Minnesota chapter, but do you know if they've experienced pushback from the Dominion soldiers?
As far as I've heard, the pushback, certainly as it pertains to the Soldiers' Monument, has been minimal, and there hasn't been any kind of radical pushback element. That's not to say that the Satanic Temple isn't a target of, threats and sort of things like that from that element. But as it pertains to that campaign, surprisingly, as of yet, there hasn't been much. If you're crazy enough to read the comments section in some newspapers, you'll find some stuff there. But in real life, so to speak, there hasn't been anything yet that's been a real problem on that campaign.
Yeah, I remember when you were speaking earlier about like the statue, or was it Dustin, with the goat's head and the wings and all that? Like people went fucking ballistic over that. They went fucking nuts because they consider what you consider to be like your fucking morning sun they consider it to be like the most evil fucking thing. And not only is it the most evil thing, but it's everything that goes wrong in their life is attributed to this. Mm-hmm. If you lose your car keys, it's fucking Satan. If fucking Popeye's chicken runs out of chicken, it's Satan. If the fucking red turns, if the light turns red, it's fucking Satan. Like everything is. I'm just surprised that there hasn't been more pushback, because like your organization is the antithesis of the majority of North America, say.
Well, we did make Alex Jones cry once, and that was a beautiful thing. But we definitely do get some real pushback. Don't get me wrong. There is serious, and our members, I'm very open. As you mentioned earlier, I'm lucky to be able to be as open as I am, right? People talk about privilege. I got it up the wazoo. I can walk down the street in a Satanic t-shirt. No one's going to even look at me twice.
Yeah, you're pretty jacked away.
Yeah, I don't
walking down the road. Personal trainer, so yeah.
I don't project that.
Ex-military, fucking badass beard, bunch of tattoos. Yeah,
I'm very aware of that, right? I'm very aware of that, and a lot of our members, especially some of our members in the States, they don't have that luxury. They have to hide behind, aliases. They have to really be careful about their identity. They have to really, they can lose. In fact, there's even job loss that's occurred. Again, things I'm not going to get into, but there's been real life consequences, I guess you could say, for people because of their membership to the temple, and they're obviously willing enough to endure those challenges because they believe in what we stand for enough to endure them. But yeah, there's definitely calling yourself a Satanist. People might think, hey, it's 2017. You can, those crazy kids can do anything now. That's not the case at all. There's still a massive backlash against it. You as an atheist, I'm sure you guys definitely feel some of it, right?
Well, down south, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Here, I've never... Oh, Ed in fucking Newfoundland, where they have two fucking IQs, one lost, the other one was like... Anyways, no, I've never experienced anything from it, but I'm sure Dustin...
Satan to the whole idea of so you reject supernaturalism to begin with. Well, you're rejecting an entire group of religions, let alone one, and their followers, and then you add this whole Satan sort of symbolism on top of it. Then you're going to get some backlash for sure. But we get an enormous amount of positive feedback as well, which is kind of how we formed, right? It was just people kind of reaching out and saying, this really resonates with me. And that's how our chapter system on purpose is sort of devised. It's a bunch of people who come together and say, okay, let's do this. There's a need for it in our location. Let's do this. And we say, well, get together, do something, talk. Let's see a community forum. Let's see you guys do this. And if they do it, then chapters can form from that. And that's an exciting thing. And it's happening at a pretty rapid pace.
Dustin, have you experienced any backlash from being an atheist in the South? I'm not talking about from like people your age, the millennials, but you know what I mean? Like,
no, not really. No. To be honest, okay, I was accused, as listeners would know, I was accused of starting a satanic cult and thrown out of my Christian school when I was a Christian. But ever since I've been just out and out atheist, like the worst I get is like, oh, you're never get your shit together until you get right with God, or you never find a good woman until you get right with God. That's the worst I get. Like, and maybe it's because everyone that knows me knows I'm an argumentative fuck, and I know what I'm talking about. They know that but like, and it's not like strangers know when I'm walking down the street. They're not like, hey, it's that atheist down the street. Let's go beat him up like that. That doesn't happen. So no,
Nick can't hide. Well, I don't know. His shirt's kind of selling.
Right. I can't hide at all.
Oh, sure, yeah. So he's deciding to put himself out there. I would say like the worst that I've ever, and it's not even like worse. It's just like people that are like, seriously, you don't believe in God? You have to believe in something. Like,
Yeah.
that's like the worst thing that I experienced.
I get stuff like that. Real quick, in that vein, my favorite that I've ever gotten was probably about 3 months ago. I was at work and the whole thing come up, and so this girl goes, "So if you find like $10 on the floor, that doesn't mean anything to you?" And I was like, "No, it means someone lost their money." Like I was like, you think God it would drop $10 for you when you were hungry? Is that what the fuck you think?
So he robbed this poor bastard who was in the Walmart down south and probably was going to buy fucking mac and cheese for his 4 kids. God steals it, and fucking this girl finds it.
No, he counterfeits it.
Oh.
Come on.
Okay.
God has his own counterfeiting machine.
Okay. Right on.
All right, Ed, sorry.
No problem. I'm just very excited having a Satanist on the show, Nick, for a number of reasons. Being an ex-Mormon, you would, like, 10 years ago, I would not be able to be in the same room because I would have been so terrified. So terrified.
Understood.
But to see the evolution from where I was and where I'm to, it excites me because I can see. A boner? No, but I can see a person for who they really are, no matter what they believe in, and it's an exciting venture because I can see that. No, I just mean that it's very interesting that it's the exact opposite of what people believe that you do, like the charity work and things. But anyway, just. This is exciting to see. I can't wait to see something like this in Newfoundland. A satanic organization, even.
Well, we have.
Oh, sorry.
We
go
have
ahead,
great interest right now. Ottawa is the current chapter. That's just how that's how it started. But we have mobilization happening in a few other provinces, particularly in 2 areas. I won't out them right now, but they're doing a great job of getting little communities together. And I wouldn't be surprised to see at least satanic communities, openly satanic communities, popped up, going with the sort of the TST, following the TST tenets and starting up their own communities in the next year, I'd say. So if you're excited about that, it's definitely not a one-stop shop here in Ottawa. It's continuing.
Awesome.
Oh, David, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so I wanted to just I had a question about media relations. So clearly talking about, it's written up in the New York Times, which is obviously a very major newspaper. What is how does the temple work with media? Like, what's your media strategy in terms of getting these types of articles out there? Are you guys focused on that, or is this something that just happened randomly?
No, we have a heavy enough followership. I mean, people are interested in what we're doing, so the stories do tend to just find themselves in local papers. Our leadership definitely gets a certain amount of requests for leadership. I mean, rather for interviews and for article contributions and so on and so forth. So just by virtue of what we do, we get the word out there. It tends to get out there on its own very, very effectively. I mean, strategically, in terms of getting out there, we don't. One thing that we're very serious about is we don't proselytize at all, right? We don't seek followers, right? We seek collaborators, and that's actually a quote from a very early speech that one of our spokespeople did. But it's very true, right? We're not. My goal isn't to have a chapter of like 100 people just to say I have 100 Satanists. If I have 12 really awesome, active, participating people, I would prefer that over greater numbers, right? We're not, and that's one way in which we probably do fundamentally differ from a lot of more traditional Abrahamic religions, is we're not a numbers game. We're not seeking to bolster our numbers and seeking to have people talk about us. We identify missions, we identify areas where plurality is lacking, where one point of view is dominating over another, and we think of ways to action that. And we come together as communities to talk about that. But, our idea isn't to be the McFace of Satanism, so to speak.
Wouldn't that be fucking hilarious, though, if the Satanists were like J-dubs? And they come around, knock, knock, knock. Yes. So, we're here to tell you about the bad news.
Well, I can tell you if we did, we'd wear way better clothing than they do, but I don't think that's not our purview at all.
That's for sure. So if anybody wanted to help out with what's going on in Minnesota, like 70% of our listeners are Americans, how would they go ahead and do that, either monetarily or just support?
Absolutely, and definitely support is something that we really are looking out for right now for this monument. We want to get it out there as fast as possible. The fastest way to do it is to go to our website, which is thesatanictemple.com, and in the I'm just going to see just to make sure where we've put it. If you go to thesatanictemple.com / the Satanic Temple Veterans Monument, just throw some hyphens between those words, and you'll get a special page. I believe it's on the home page right now as well. We are accepting contributions, donations to get this monument built and erected on the public grounds as soon as possible.
Okay. We're going to head for a break. We'll be right back with the last segment of the show. Okay, and that brings us back from the break. And as always, this is Piss on This.
Okay, so we wanted to bring in something for our guest today, run it by him, see if he knows what's going on here. Jim Baker says that Satan is out to destroy Trump, maybe kill him. So let's hear him out and see what he has to say here.
Wow, those are some pretty accusations. I think that's an awesome statement, and it works so perfectly in how we view the Satan character, right? Because he's basically saying everybody I don't agree with is a Satanist, and therefore they're trying to kill what I believe, which is exactly what Christians say, what Christians call people who they disagree with. They call them Satanists. And when I say Christians in that context, I'm talking about people like him. I'm not in any way anti-Christian or anti-anything. I'm really just anti-oppression. So in that case, I think that he's using the term correctly.
I think, Jim Baker, you'll be anti after you listen to the video that Dustin's going to play and you learn the fact that he's selling tubs of pasta for $2,500 for the apocalypse. You may be anti-Jim Baker. Like, this guy may be like one guy where you might be like, okay, I can be anti this guy.
I believe Revelation 6:2 is now. And it says, I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bowl, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. This warfare with our President Trump, I've never seen a man, especially a president, so hated, and such evil speech going on. It's beyond anything I've ever seen. There's a war against our president. There's a war against Christianity. The church needs to wake up, because we are in such a time like never, ever before, but the church is silent. I hope people will go to your news website today and that they will read or listen. They can actually play the tape from Lance Wallnau. It's time that the church has got to wake back up again, because we're seeing things happen like never before. I believe with all my heart that if we don't stand up soon, they could destroy our president. And I said this one time, and I probably shouldn't even repeat what I feel God spoke to me about, but there's going to be an attempt on our president's life very soon. We need to pray for the protection of our president. The church is responsible for prayer, for covering, and it's time now for us to come out of the shell. The world is marching in the streets against our president, and it is a war like I've never seen before. And it's time the church literally elected this man. And I know the president called me on the phone and talked to me for almost 20 minutes a few months ago, thanking me for what our viewers and our partners did by voting for him. And
hold on. Bullshit. Bullshit. Jim Baker, the president's on the phone for suck a dick. Hold on. When is Satan getting in this? I'm getting pissed.
And he watches the show. I mean, he told me, he said, Jim, I like what you're doing. He said, don't change. Dude, keep doing. Well, you know, I don't get a lot of encouragement from church people. It seems like, anyway.
Oh,
They're saying, you're scaring us. But I'll tell you what. It's a scary time. They want to kill him with being able... They're referring to him as like Nixon. They want him impeached. If they cannot kill him with words, they will try to physically murder the President of the United States.
Hey, you guys remember when Nixon was assassinated?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yes,
I do.
I do. Actually,
I was, know. Okay.
They've called for it online. There's literally been thousands of people online calling for the assassination of the President of the United States. Ronald Reagan is such a good illustration. Ronald Reagan was shot, but thank God he was this spirit of Antichrist, the spirit, this Leviathan twisting everything our president does. And the church needs to really pray. Pastors need to address this and have intercessory. I'm not talking about just saying, in Jesus' name, bless him. I'm talking about interceding, crying out, even having prayer meetings. And I know it's not dignified for some churches, but to have the church cry out. I mean, literally, when I'm in my car and I'm driving, I'm by myself.
He's crying now.
Cry out, God, save our president.
I want to stop here too. Like, I get so happy.
Please stop.
I get so happy whenever I hear Christians saying, like, guys, we have to get together and wish really hard that this will go good for us. Let's get together in the church and just imagine things going well. That'll fix the problems.
I want to touch on something that he was saying, like that he's never seen any backlash like this.
Does he forget that Kennedy got shot in the head?
Yeah, I know, and also he's like there's with them, it's always like when Obama was in office with this guy, he was always saying like that the church needs to pull their shit together and everything's fucking coming to an end when it's Obama. Then when they win, it's the same thing. Everybody's out to fucking, you know what I mean? Like everything is always the worst end, apocalypse, death, destruction. I'm fucking Jim Baker.
You can buy my junk and my dehydrated food for $2,500 online.
Yes.
Please do.
Yes.
In time.
You know, he was telling people to use it as furniture. It's like, and if you live in an apartment, just use it as a table.
I mean, if it is their God's plan that Trump... I mean, you've heard of those Christian theories where they picked Trump because of his incompetency. Like, God likes to show his power through really incompetent people exceeding.
I've never heard that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've heard it.
Yeah. So like, if they don't have enough,
explains a lot.
Yeah, there's some text in the Bible that says that someone who's, I don't know, I'm not going to misquote the Bible, but someone who's really incompetent, and if God makes them succeed, then that's like a proof of God's power because he's making these really inept people succeed. But I would think if he's the one, if they believe that God has chosen him to lead them, that no matter what he does, no matter how incompetent he is, they'd have to at least have the faith to see it through. Like, if it is God's plan that he succeed, why do they need to have intercessory prayer to help him? So.
Phone line's broken between God and the president, so they have to do something. I have no idea.
Phone line's fucking broken between the president and Jim Baker too. Dustin's right.
Hold on. Like, doesn't God work like American Idol? Like, you just phone in and you tell him what happens, and then he kicks out the guy you don't like, right?
The votes, yeah.
Oh, makes sense now.
But so how does it make you? I won't say make. How does it make you feel? But what do you think when you hear somebody saying that the Antichrist is out to get fucking Donald Trump? And it's like I was saying earlier, that they really do, like, what your temple holds up as like the epitome of what a human should be. Yeah. It is like, for them, it's like the worst, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I'm cognizant that Baker there is not, the guy's he's a whack. He's like Alex Jones. He's not representative of a massive. He's one of those people that you listen to and you get all riled up and fired up because that's exactly what he wants you to do. But he's a freak, and everybody knows it, and most of his own people know it too. That's why he's selling pasta. Why do you think he's selling pasta on the side? Because his true religious credibility is non-existent, right? But when I hear people say stuff like that, listen, I mean, they got 2,000 years of having been told what this symbol represents, and religion's a powerful thing. That's why, having religion in legislation is such a dangerous thing that we really want to avoid, because it does hold such emotional power, so much sway over people, right? What other people believe or don't believe in is completely immaterial to me, and I think I'd rather put my energy into focusing on the things I can do with the beliefs that I have. I think that really being concerned about what other people believe is kind of a bit of an Abrahamic kind of tradition, right? They're always wondering what the other guys do, and they're always concerned about, they're always scheming over it. We don't really care. We care about what we're doing, how we can bring that forward. Whatever people are doing around us only becomes an issue with us if it impedes on religious freedom, if it impedes on plurality and so on and so forth. If people want to keep thinking that Satan's a scary guy in red, they keep thinking that. There's a rich historical tradition that says otherwise, and that's the tradition we choose to align with.
Can I ask a favor?
Yeah.
If Satan is going to kill Donald Trump, can he kill Mike Pence too? First, because we do not want Mike Pence.
I can't publicly comment on any sort of assassination, but I will say that I understand the scenario you're talking about.
And just to push back on the first part of your comment, yes, Jim Baker is a freak, but I'm really doubtful if his views are very fringe. I'm not sure if you actually said that, but
if his views are what? Sorry,
really fringe. I think a lot of people believe in demonic forces.
I think what Dave is asking is maybe suggesting that Baker's views are not actually as fringe as I made them out to be. I think that I'm willing to concede that I think, there's a lot of people out there who do believe in demonic sort of forces being a precursor to actual sort of events, in that they might think, things are kind of weird lately, maybe this is happening, and then there's people like Baker, and I think that it's important to make that distinction, because if we start normalizing him too much, then he becomes more scary, and I think that I don't think he deserves that. I think that there's definitely people who look up to like sort of celebrity preachers as being their calling, but I think that those people aren't necessarily. I think that Baker's a scary thing. I think that. But I do think it's a bit fringe. I think what's scarier isn't necessarily the Jim Bakers. I think it's the people that have that sort of, I'm not religiously biased. No, I just think these people are bad people. You know what I mean? I think it's the people that sort of have fallen into those sort of vortexes of prejudice that religion encourages so much, without even realizing that it's religion that's at the root of that issue. And I think for the Canadian narrative, that's a way bigger problem. In the States, again, very clear, very black and white. In Canada, it's very subtle. A lot of Canadians, the average Canadian, thinks of themselves as being very secular, and those Canadians don't like to talk about religion a whole lot, right? Not like they do in the States. But they still say and act on a lot of impulses and on a lot of ideas that are based on a religious upbringing. And that, especially when it comes to sort of looking at certain segments of society in a certain way, or looking at law as a moral sort of champion versus a completely sort of separate thing.
Yeah, but I would think though that like even so if you are a believer in Christ and God, and I'm not talking about like your person that goes twice a year, then you're going to be a believer in demonic forces. You may not think that they're actually happening to you, but I mean, like, how far away are they from? They're like one weird thing happening from believing that fucking demonic presence is in their life, right?
Well,
you know?
I'm gonna step in and say that in my experiences, I was probably in my 20s before I met somebody that didn't believe in demonic presences, presence and spirits, like not necessarily possession, but you know, if you believe in God and you believe in the devil, you definitely believe that Satan has his angels and those are demons. That's very common, very very common. Like I knew people that thought demons would follow people home and shit. So. But then again,
what they do when
I
they
knew
got
crazy
there?
people. Huh?
What would they do when they got there?
Man, just fuck with them. Like, have you ever seen like Paranormal Activities or whatever, like that shit? Just like bumps in the night and
the furnace kicked on.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I knew people that full on believed in possessions and casting out demons and all that shit too. But I went to church schools, so my pool is tainted. The pool that I'm drawing from is a little tainted. But I would say they're out there. They're out there in numbers. It's just not polite conversation, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree more with David, Nick. That I don't think Jim Baker is like. I think he himself obviously is crazy. But I think that there's a lot of people out there that would be like, yeah, Jim's a little wackadoo. But man, he sure is right about the fucking devil trying to fucking run fucking roughshod over America. He sure is right about this fucking sweater that I bought at the fucking Goodwill being possessed by witches. You know what I mean? Like I do think that there's people out there that they may not be overtly as outspoken as nuts as him, but sure do believe in what he's saying.
And let's also keep in mind, and I don't want to dogpile on you, but Jim Baker was actually very successful and famous in the 70s and 80s, where he was actually caught fraud. Yeah, fraud. So that's why he doesn't have numbers now. Is that jail time where he was proven huckster. So
I remember that. That was a great day.
Dustin, do you have one more?
Oh, I do have one more clip here, and we're to stick on the huckster himself. Trump opponents have triggered the apocalypse. This isn't the same.
Oh, that's to get people to buy his pasta.
Of course it is.
An infomercial.
I wrote on a piece of paper, and I doubt if you can see it. What is this war now? It's all about words. Words.
I want to paint a picture. This is no joke. He's holding a blue sheet of paper and written in orange crayon.
It has to be
the word.
But you know why that's important to him?
Fucking hell.
Because in the beginning
how to spell it?
Was the word. And the word was God.
In the beginning was the word, and the word was God, and the word was with God. Oh God, fucking.
That's why he's bringing this up.
I'm so glad I never catch on to that shit.
All right, what's 10 seconds in? I already have cancer from this. Let's continue.
Okay.
Words. This is the first horse of the apocalypse. You say, oh, Jim, you believe we're in the apocalypse? Yes. The apocalypse has already begun. And the four horses of the apocalypse, read it. I'm going to read it, and then you can comment if you want. But I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow and a crown was given unto him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer, to subdue. But what was this white? He had a bow, but he did not have arrows. He did not have the weapon. He didn't have bullets. He didn't have, this is biblical terminology. So here we have
Can you
right
stop
now.
That for a second, Dustin?
I don't want to start it back up, actually. I think we get what he's saying.
You don't shoot bullets out of a bow, Jim. That's
very confusing.
Not a fucking thing. It's not how it works.
I think he said bowl because in the whole
He said bowl.
BOWL, right? Bowl.
No, he said bow.
Bow. He said bow.
Oh, okay, my bad. Because there's this whole thing where God pours out curses. Whatever. Who cares?
But bullets, and that's not how that works. Dried
Not
spaghetti noodles. Now that's something you could.
No, Dave.
That was a bad joke.
Yes, that was a terrible joke.
Jim Baker sucks.
We all know you should sharpen the
He literally does, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. We found somebody that you hate.
Oh yeah, I can hate him. Really.
Oh, do we really have to finish listening to his message of the apocalypse?
Yes.
Yeah.
And a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer, to subdue. But what was this way? He had a bow, but he did not have arrows. He did not have the weapon. He didn't have bullets. He didn't have, this is biblical terminology. So here we have right now
Bullets is biblical
the
terminology.
spirit of Antichrist, this evil spirit. It's a war of words. And they're using it on television. All that. They said so and so is plans to kill Hannity, and they don't mean kill with a gun. They mean kill with words.
That's right.
And I've been crying out, and I don't know if anyone in the church is hearing me. But we're in a warfare of words, and the church has got to wake up, and we've got to stand up. Salvation is words with the mouth.
I just want to let people know that Nick looks like he's in physical pain.
Yes.
I am.
He looks like he's getting a tattoo. Just.
Confession is made unto salvation, and the devil is trying to cut out the voice of the church.
Well, he came to kill, steal,
Can you
and
pause it for a
destroy
second?
everything that the
Yeah, don't make me
I
unpause
just
it.
want to make a real quick point. So when he says that, when he says they're trying to kill the voice, right? That is a typical response from the big religions, right? When they have to share the stage, when they have to just do the same thing, or when someone else says, "Can we do the same thing you're doing?" They see it as this massive act of oppression, not just equality, or not just freedom, right? They see it as something that's being done to them. And that's something you see in so many examples of big religion being offended by the mere presence of a non-traditional religion.
That's their persecution complex.
Oh yeah, and it's so deep. It runs so deep, and you see it here. You see him riding that horse so hard right now in that little speech of his that we're listening to as we speak.
I'm sure he does ride hard.
Okay. That's more imagery than I needed. Okay. Go with the clip.
Our President Trump, with words. They want to assassinate his person.
Absolutely. It's this a character of assassination of a character, and that's what's happening. Everywhere you turn, everything you watch, everything you hear, everything that is being put out in social media today is to assassinate the character of a president.
Because he's a fucking moron.
Yeah. No.
Jesus fucking Christ, he does the dumbest shit, that's why.
His personality committed suicide years ago. We don't have to assassinate it right now.
Oh, fuck, he never had one to kill in the first place, Ed.
Anyway, I'm done with this clip. I'm really, I just can't listen to
it. Yeah, mercy.
We're halfway through it.
Oh, mercy, please. Yeah.
Yes, no, I wanted to quit fucking 45 seconds in. Like, I heard enough of this in school. Ooh.
All right.
Okay, guys. Well, go buy some dried out corn and
pasta.
And some mashed
Apparently
potatoes.
It tastes terrible too. Some people bought it just to try it. Apparently, it's awful.
Probably tastes like tears.
Tears of your $2,500 being and Christian tears of the persecution that they've been suffering lately. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Get it.
Yeah. The war on Christmas, baby.
War on Christmas. Okay, Nick. Well, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks a lot for having me.
No worries, man. It was a great time.
Thanks a lot. And if anybody has any questions, the www.thesatanictemple.com will answer all of them.
Cool. And if people wanted to find you personally, not to kill you or anything like that, but
if you just go to the Satanic Temple Ottawa Facebook page, you'll find all of our info on there.
Right on.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it very much.
No worries.
All right. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
This was the Wayward Atheist Podcast. Visit our new website at waywardatheists.com. Follow us on Spreaker, spreaker.com/waywardatheists. You can email us at waywardatheistpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at waywardatheists and on facebook.com/waywardatheists. If you enjoy our content, feel free to leave us a review on iTunes and feel free to support us at patreon.com/waywardatheists.